So you keep dying and dying and dying. Your KD is practically unfixable, and you can't seem to just simply enjoy XDefiant anymore. Today, I have the best 5-step method you can use to get better at XDefiant. Each of these steps works with the others, and when you combine all of them, you really will see improvement. So pull out your notebooks, bring up your Google Docs, prepare your stone tablets, and get ready. Step 1 is the foundation of your skill improvement, or the devastation of your controller after you chuck it at the nearest wall because you lost another 1v1, depending on how willing you are to practice. You see, the skill I'm referring to is your aim. If your aim is worse than a stormtrooper's from a Star Wars movie, then I'm thinking you should be more aware of how you're aiming. There are two key details when it comes to getting better at aiming. Number 1 is very simple. It's just practice. Whether that means hitting up the practice zone in game for my console players or checking out an aim trainer for my PC folks, just practicing will make your aim so much better. Believe me, I've spent time in these aim trainers in those practice zones. It's worth every second of your time, and the headshots will just start rolling in. The second point I want to make about your aim is crosshair placement. If you've heard anything about CSGO or Valorant, then I'm sure you've heard these terms before. Crosshair placement is exactly what it sounds like. Placing your crosshair at head height at all times, which makes sense. It takes so much longer to react if your crosshair is aimed at the toes of the other player. But if you're aiming at his head, then boom, there's less time needed to react. It'll eventually become muscle memory, but I even catch myself slipping up, looking at the rocks on the ground rather than what's in front of me. So be sure to implement these skills you work on into the game so that you will finally be on your way to start playing better. But this first step isn't the only thing you need to get better, because without the others, aim is only so useful. Step 2 is a monumental part of XDefiant. In fact, it's a monumental part of most every FPS game. Movement is different among players, just like NBA players have their go-to move that they use to score. Although you won't be breaking any ankles in XDefiant, movement is what makes it so difficult to shoot you as a player. Picture this. If I'm shooting at a target that isn't moving, it's super easy. But if that same target started jumping around and sliding all over the place, then it would be a lot harder to be accurate when you're shooting at it. The same goes for XDefiant. If you're just walking, not jumping or even sprinting, then it will be super easy for the other players to kill you. But if you implement concepts like bunny hopping, slide canceling, or web slinging, then it'll be so much harder for the opponent to connect a shot. And if your aim is on point because you did all the things I said in step 1, well then, you're already 2 steps closer to being even better at XDefiant. And even though these 2 steps are awesome by themselves, without the last 3, you just won't be quite as good. Map knowledge is a huge part of so many games. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege is developed by the same people as XDefiant, Ubisoft. In Rainbow Six Siege, if you aren't familiar with the maps and the names of many of the rooms, it can be difficult to even compete at a casual level. Although XDefiant doesn't require much strategy at all, and you don't need to know the names of every nook and cranny on the map, knowing the map helps exponentially, which is why it is the 3rd step in this method. Just like step 1, there are 2 parts to map knowledge. Part 1 is all about positioning. It's easy to get behind the other team if you know the map, catching the other team off guard and snagging 2 or 3 kills in the process. You can also find some really awesome angles in spots some people may not know about, and there might even be a few head glitches on a handful of maps. Positioning is also following a rule in the FPS community known as the 40-60 rule. The idea is that 40% of your screen is behind cover and 60% of your screen is peeking into an open area beaming other players. Before you get into a gunfight, find a little bit of cover you can hide behind as you engage so that you can peek in and out, making it much harder to shoot you. Part 2 of map knowledge regards spawns. A general rule of thumb to follow to know where the other team is spawning has to do with opposites. What I mean by this is, for example, I spawn on one side of the map, then the other team spawns on the opposite. An amazing trick for this is paying attention to your teammates. If you notice 2 or 3 of your teammates grouped together in one of the spawn areas, that is most likely your own spawn, meaning the opposite side of the map is the other team. Being aware of what part of the map you're on is a great way for you to improve that much more at XDefiant. So far, I've spoken on aim, movement, and map knowledge, all of which are great skills you need to be better at XDefiant, but the 2 steps that remain will show even more improvement in how you play. XDefiant is known as the COD killer, and although I don't know enough to reach a verdict on this topic, I do know that XDefiant holds a lot of similarities to Call of Duty, and one of the biggest similarities is the loadout system. You're given 2 slots for weapons. The first slot is your primary gun. These are your assault rifles, submachine guns, shotguns, LMGs, marksman rifles, and snipers. The second slot is for your secondary. These are your pistols, among which are your deagles, semi-automatics, and a burst fire pistol. Step 4 in the 5-step method is finding the right loadout, but also a good loadout. I know it seems kind of rhetorical to use a loadout that's good, but I don't just mean the right guns. I'm also talking about the attachments you're using. The way I've learned this is from sniping. My favorite way to play XDefiant is sniping. A large part of sniping is the speed you can scope in and fire off a round. This means that I want attachments that are going to increase the speed, so I want an attachment like the quick draw grip because of the 10% increase in sprint shoot time and ADS speed. There are tons of videos on all kinds of attachments to equip to your weapons for different purposes. If you're an aggressive player, you'll want a gun with faster ADS speed and sprint to shoot time with good recoil. If you're a more passive player that plays from a distance, you'll want a gun with solid recoil that may not scope in very fast, but is steady to aim and easy to control, plus has a fast TTK. Weapons aren't the only part of a loadout though. There's also your device, which in this game is like a grenade. There are currently 5 devices in the game: the sticky grenade, the frag grenade, the flashbang grenade, the EMP grenade, and the proximity mine. The device you choose will also go with your playstyle. An EMP and sticky grenade may be good for aggressive players, while the proximity mine is good for a passive player trying to cover their tracks. There's a lot of great factors that can go into forming your perfect loadout, but there's also trial and error, just like there will be with the 3 previous steps to this method. The lid of this method, the glue that brings it all together, the final part that will combine all the other steps with this one and will most definitely help you improve at XDefiant, the 5th and final step. Step 5 is the faction you're choosing. There are 5 factions in XDefiant. You have Cleaners, Phantoms, Libertad, Echelon, and DedSec. Each of these factions serves a different purpose, from burning everything on the map to sticking the most annoying electrifying little metal spider to your face that makes you want to punch a monitor. Learning to counter other factions and just learning these factions in general will help you tremendously when you're playing them. Understanding each character's abilities, such as the Echelon Intel Suit or the Libertad BioVita boost, can make all the difference. Mastering the usage of each character's ultra will also help to improve yourself. Just like every other step in this process to get better, learning each part of the game is so important. Finding the faction that you're best at will also help you to learn more about that faction, and will in turn guide you on that path to getting better and better at XDefiant. And once you find that faction, find the ability on that faction that works the best for you. Just like finding your loadout, you have to find your faction and your ability. It's all about being the best you can, and this goes back to the analogy of the NBA players that have their signature move, the move they always go to so they can score. But just finding the best faction, just finding the best loadout, just learning the maps, just learning the movement, just practicing your aim won't really help you to get as good as I think you want to get. If you utilize all these things simultaneously, if you use them together and really try, you will get better. This 5-step method to get better at XDefiant is the best way you can climb to the top. If you apply these steps, they will work. It means the world that you took the time out of your day to watch this. If you would like to see more videos like this and support the channel, subscribe and like the video. Turn on your notifications so that you can see when I post more videos, and comment what else would help players to improve at XDefiant. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.